Week 4 in the Big South is come and gone. Before we get into Week 5's action, let's take a look back at the weekend that was. Number 7, Kennesaw State went on the road and knocked off Missouri State 35-24. The Owls trailed by 9 at the half, but came out of the break and scored 3 rushing touchdowns to take their first lead of the day. Isaac Foster finished the game with 183 yards on just 8 carries and had touchdown runs of 75 yards and 67 yards. Bronson Rettsteiner had 221 yards on 10 carries, including an 85-yard run. The Owls finished the day with 479 yards to Missouri State's 93. Monmouth fell on the road at number 19 Montana. The Grizzlies outscored the Hawks 26-13 in the second half of their win. Kenji Bahar finished with 34 completions on 50 attempts for 393 yards and a pair of scores. Lonnie Moore IV caught 7 passes for 104 yards and a score, while Terrence Green Jr. caught 8 passes for 99 yards. Charleston Southern lost at the Citadel in the battle for Charleston 22-13. The number 25 ranked Bulldogs held the Buccaneers to a pair of field goals before Jack Chambers found Garris Schwarting for a 27-yard score in the fourth. Chambers finished with 92 yards and a TD through the air and 94 yards on 8 carries on the ground. Wide receiver Cameron Brown had 6 catches for 118 yards in the loss. North Alabama lost to number 10 Jacksonville State 30-12. Christian Lopez had 252 yards through the air on 21 completions for the Lions. He connected with Andre Little for a 15-yard score in the third quarter. Jacoby Bird caught 8 passes from Lopez for 85 yards. Hampton lost to former Big South foe Liberty on the road 62-27. The FBS Flames led 41-12 at the break in a game that was never close. For Hampton, DeAndre Francois completed 19 of his 25 passes for 288 yards and 3 scores. Francois had TD passes of 28, 25, and 53 yards. Jadakiss Bonds had 8 catches for 144 yards and 2 scores in the loss. The Campbell Fighting Camels escaped with a narrow victory over Davidson, 31-29, to hand the Wildcats their first loss. 0-3 Presbyterian is on the road at 1-3 North Alabama on Saturday, the first Big South Conference game of the year. The Blue Hose have struggled offensively through the first 3 weeks, managing just over 243 yards per game. This may be the week for them to figure things out, as the Lions allow over 415 yards and almost 35 points per game. After an exciting win at home over Davidson, Campbell hits the road to take on Mercer. The Fighting Camels are led by their dual-threat freshman quarterback, Haj Malik Williams, who has over 550 passing yards and over 130 rushing yards through 3 games. Mercer has lost 2 in a row and allows over 440 yards per contest. Kennesaw State hosts NAIA Reinhardt University this weekend. The Owls are now ranked 6th in this week's Stats FCS poll. Kennesaw's 518 yards per game on offense is the 4th most in the FCS, and their defense is allowing just over 14 points per game, the 10th fewest in the country. That will do it for this week in the Big South. Come back next week for all the results and more. For the FCS Conference Whiparound, I'm Frank Sala. Week 8 in the Big South. It's not surprising to see number 6 Kennesaw State and Monmouth tied at the top of the conference's standings at 1-0. The Owls and the Hawks are the 2 teams that have won more games than anyone else over the last 2+ seasons. In that time span, they're a combined 20-2. Both losses were by Monmouth against Kennesaw in championship-deciding games. The most surprising team so far has been the Campbell Fighting Camels. The team picked to finish 6th by Stats FCS in the conference. Campbell finished just 1-4 in the Big South last year in their debut season. The Fighting Camels come into Week 8 at 4-1 overall, riding a 4-game winning streak and a 1-0 conference record after beating the only team picked to finish behind them in the preseason poll, Presbyterian 28-14 last week. The Fighting Camels are led by 2-time Big South Freshman of the Week and Conference Rookie of the Year candidate Haj Malik Williams, their quarterback from Atlanta, who has completed over 62% of his passes for 963 yards and 10 scores. Williams also has 193 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Williams has relied a lot on his sophomore receivers, Caleb Snead, who's caught 16 passes for 281 yards, and Devarius Bargner, who has 16 catches for 219 yards. The duo has also combined to catch 6 of Williams' 10 touchdowns. He also has 2 great running backs, Cameron Davis and Jonathan Hawkins, who each have over 230 yards on the ground to help balance out the offense. That Campbell offense is averaging 363.8 yards and 29 points per game. On defense, they allow over 420 total yards per game, but just 162.6 passing yards. This week will be the defense's toughest test as they host the 3-3 Hampton Pirates, the team picked to finish just ahead of them in the preseason poll. The Pirates are averaging 265 yards through the air, 463 total yards, and over 36 points per game. The Pirates are led by Florida State transfer DeAndre Francois. His 1,488 passing yards rank 3rd in the conference, and his 14 passing touchdowns lead the Big South. If Campbell can win this game, they should be taken seriously in the conference going forward. If not, they could be looking at a long second half of the season with their schedule only getting harder. Either way, this is a young team that was playing in the non-scholarship Pioneer Football League just 2 seasons ago. That will do it for this week in the Big South. For the FCS Conference Whiparound, I'm Frank Sala. Welcome into Week 9 in the Big South. For the first time in the 2019 season, Monmouth redshirt senior quarterback Kenji Bahar was named the Big South Offensive Player of the Week. The Baltimore native accounted for 347 of Monmouth's 599 yards in the Hawks' 49-28 win over Gardner-Webb Saturday afternoon. Monmouth is now 5-2 overall and 2-0 in the conference, having outscored Big South opponents 94-28. Bahar completed 20 of his 26 passes for 327 yards and 2 scores through the air and added 20 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Bahar now has 6 300-yard passing games and 14 multi-touchdown games in what has been an underrated career. Underrated because of another quarterback who was in the conference his first 3 years, Kennesaw State's Chandler Burks, the Big South's Offensive Player of the Year in back-to-back seasons. With Burks having graduated, Bahar was the preseason favorite to win the conference's Offensive Player of the Year this season, and through Monmouth's first 7 games, he has not disappointed. Bahar leads the Big South in passing yards, completions, attempts, and completion percentage, and ranks 2nd with 13 touchdowns. His 2019 numbers have placed him on the Stats FCS Walter Payton Award watch list, an award won by players like Cooper Kupp, Jimmy Garoppolo, Tony Romo, Brian Westbrook, and Steve McNair. Bahar is one of 25 players on the list and the only athlete from the Big South. Bahar is also quietly climbing the conference's record books. After passing for 2,300 yards and 16 touchdowns in each of the past 2 seasons, Bahar has already thrown for 1,800 yards and 13 scores this year, which puts him on pace for over 3,100 yards and 22 touchdowns in 2019. If Bahar can continue to put up the numbers in Monmouth's final 5 games like he has through the team's first 7, he will finish his career in a Hawks uniform with over 780 completions, 9,000 yards, and 60 touchdowns, all which would rank him in the top 4 in the Big South history books. Also, if Bahar can pass for over 300 yards in 3 of his final 5 games, he would tie former Liberty Flames quarterback Josh Woodrum with 9 career 300-yard games, the most all-time in the Big South. Now, Bahar is unlikely to win the Walter Payton Award, but when you factor in his career accomplishments, he should be the heavy favorite to take home the conference's Offensive Player of the Year award. That will do it for this week in the Big South. For the FCS Conference Whiparound, I'm Frank Sala.